Hey, no problem at all. No problem. Great to have you. So, who are you and what do you do, George?
So actually, I'm a doctor. I'm a biopathologist, and this is what basically means is that I analyze body fluids such as blood, of course, urine, saliva, vaginal fluid, cerebrospinal fluid, um, spit also. But I focus, since I come from the bodybuilding community, I focus on blood samples about bodybuilders who use AAS or PEDs, that is anabolic androgenic steroids or performance enhancing drugs. And I'm in charge of their health and basically how to avoid and prevent any side effects, so harm reduction regarding steroid use, anabolic steroid use.
Sure.
But also because the majority of the bodybuilding community later will face an anabolic steroid induced hypogonadism. And since I walk the talk because for the past 5 years I'm also following TRT and HRT because my bodybuilding career led me to secondary hypogonadism. Therefore, I walk the talk and I also consult
Yeah.
and advise not only bodybuilders but also middle-aged men who undergo in this so-called middle-age crisis about anti-aging and how to optimize their hormonal environment. So
Oh,
basically, I deal with harm reduction in AAS and PEDs and also TRT management.
okay. It makes sense. You see, it's funny because obviously we hear about TRT and you're starting to hear about TRT, which is testosterone replacement therapy. You're hearing about that a lot more frequently nowadays. You've obviously got high profile people like Joe Rogan, and for a time there was a lot of fighters in the UFC were taking it. What exactly is testosterone replacement therapy?
So testosterone replacement therapy, as the name implies, is replacing with testosterone. The point is, this is a therapy. This is something that ill people are undergoing. It's not a trendy thing. It's just a cure and a treatment to any kind of disease that exists. So it's like hypothyroidism. So you take your thyroid medications, or in case you have Addison disease, then you are injected with cortisone. The same is when you have hypogonadism, either primary or secondary, for different reasons, then you are getting injected uh, or getting other forms of testosterone administration, but with the main androgen, because men will face the andropause either in the mid 40s or mid 50s, or actually from the mid 30s, it start declining the hormonal system. But also there are other factors that may lead to hypogonadism. The point is, a man cannot live without testosterone when there is a deficiency, just like women cannot live without androgens, without estrogens. So we have the so-called, we have the menopause, but we also have the andropause. Okay,
Okay.
so it's about actually anti-aging. The basis of anti-aging is hormonal replacement therapy, and testosterone replacement therapy, both in men and women.
Sure, sure. So, like, why would, like, obviously, I'm a man in his mid 30s. I'm 35, and obviously, it's something that I've seen and I've kind of looked at before because I understand that your testosterone levels start decreasing from the age of something like 20, isn't it? And
Actually,
uh,
it's mid 30s or 40s, okay? And
okay,
each year it declines 1%. So within a decade, you have a going downhill of 10%.
okay, wow, wow. So in terms of, let's say I'm 35, and if I was looking at going on testosterone replacement therapy, like why would I go on? Like what are the benefits from going on testosterone replacement therapy?
Now, I'll tell you what are the side effects of testosterone deficiency.
Sure.
Now, we have the morning moodiness and perhaps some melancholy or depression. We have fatigue. We have this foggy mind. We have also loss of muscle strength, muscle weakness, visceral or mental fat accumulation, erectile dysfunction and loss of sex drive, and perhaps some self-esteem and some self-confidence. So actually, this describes briefly that a man ages, okay? He's going
Yeah.
downhill. So he's feeling older, incapable of, and therefore this has both physical and both mental and physical consequences.
Yeah.
The benefits would be not just about, it's not just about sex drive or muscle strength. So it's not about having sex or getting to the gym. It's about improving insulin sensitivity. So fighting insulin resistance and diabetes type 2. Now, it's also melancholy and depression sometimes has some causes in hypogonadism, because we know that testosterone and other factors like DHT also, which is a main androgen, is a secondary androgen, play a role in depression. Men with low DHT and with low testosterone have also low serotonin, low dopamine. Therefore, this is neurotransmitters that all play a role in brain chemistry.
Sure. And like let's say, okay, as I said, I'm 35 years of age, and I'm relatively active. I try and work out, I suppose, 4 or 5 times a week. I don't feel sluggish yet, but I'm definitely not as energetic as I was, say, when I was 25. Would I be too young to go on TRT? Or I suppose the reason I'm asking, because obviously, like you're saying, testosterone levels drop in men generally in their mid-30s. So I suppose, would it be good to kind of catch it before it starts dropping, or what way would you recommend that?
That we both have to compare clinical symptoms along with extensive lab work. So
Okay.
it's neither the one or the other, it's the combination of both. We don't just treat numbers in labs, but we also treat the symptoms, and each patient, of course, is different. It's according also to the lifestyle. For instance, somebody, my schoolmate that I had in the school, has a testosterone level of 400, which is about mid-range for our age now. I'm 47. The point is, his lifestyle is not so demanding. He's married. He doesn't care so much about sex. He wants to have sex perhaps once a week. He doesn't attend to the gym. He just works in the office. So he's not living a so demanding lifestyle, unlike a bachelor who lives alone and is more sexually active, and also faces the gym on a daily basis.
Sure. I got you. And like, do you find this? Do you find that there's a little bit of a stigma about TRT, because obviously it's a relatively new treatment, and I think that obviously with, I suppose, some people, when people were taking it, say for instance in the UFC, people were being called cheats and whatever. But obviously, if you're taking it in your personal life to improve your quality of life, that's not going to be the case. But do you find that there's a little bit of a stigma about it?
Yes, this is a good question. Actually, this is kind of a treatment. It's not about enhancing, performance. So, as the name implies, treatment. It's about replacement, and it's not about abusing testosterone, which is something like doping. Okay. Now, if there's any stigma, it's because of the bad name that bodybuilders gave to testosterone throughout the abuse. Actually, testosterone is the main androgen that separates boys from men, and of course, men from women. No man can live without testosterone deficiency under healthy conditions, And also, if there is any stigma, it's perhaps of the administration of the injections. But also, we know that diabetes also insulin is also injected. The point is, they connect testosterone with androgenic anabolic steroids that are testosterone's derivatives and are responsible for muscle growth, and muscle building, what bodybuilders do. But it's the bad use of the testosterone and AAS, the derivatives, that gives the bad name. So testosterone is the foundation of youth, and it's a drug, it's a cheap drug that has access, at least in Europe, unlike the US, that can treat many other diseases. And we know that this may not be so favorable for the big pharma that wants to produce and sell expensive drugs like EPO, for instance, or antidepressives or statins. And actually, testosterone is able to help with other diseases as well, like anemia, osteoporosis, depression, diabetes, dyslipidemia, and this also joint pain and arthritis.
Yeah.
Can you imagine that such a cheap drug can do the job, of course, auxiliary job of other medications? So basically, these can ruin the sales for the big pharma, and
So they don't want this. Yeah, I got you. I got you. So let's say, okay, as I said, I'm 35. Let's say my testosterone levels are relatively normal at the moment. Let's say if I started taking testosterone as to I suppose supplement. Let's say if they were already relatively normal, but if I started supplementing it with it, what would be the results of that?
Listen, whenever we administrate a hormone exogenously in the system, there is a homeostatic mechanism that apparently suppresses and shuts off our own production. So it's the same with thyroxine, with cortisol, with testosterone. The point is, if you are not officially considered hypogonadic below, for instance, 350 nanograms per deciliter, then, and you have 400, for instance, so officially you're not considered as hypogonadic in order to be introduced and prescribed to testosterone. Simply you shut off this little production that you have. And the point is, if you get plagued with testosterone, it has to be for life. We don't just cycle on and off.
Sure.
Because whenever you get plagued with testosterone or any other kind of hormone, then the system and the organism does not produce anymore. There's a suppression.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
You have to be really sure it's a lifetime commitment and responsible, but of course it has to be diagnosed. And listen, it's way better to use testosterone rather than staying hypogonadic. I mean, the side effects of being hypogonadic are way more than the potential side effects out of prolonged testosterone use or abuse.
Sure, I got you. I got you. And in terms of I suppose one of the things that I do know is, like, let's say I'm obviously in Ireland, and I know that the UK is even stricter than Ireland. That it's very hard to get prescribed TRT, and when you do get prescribed, sometimes, like, I know that there was a doctor doing it in Kildare, but I'm not sure if he's still doing it in Ireland. But I know that a lot of the times it's these expensive clinics that they try and get people to go to, and they're charging people way over the odds for basically what is just a testosterone treatment. Like, why do you think that some areas in the world, like obviously the United States is quite advanced with their TRT treatment, and obviously some areas in Europe, and then other areas are kind of lagging behind? Why is that?
Because I think Europe suffers from the so-called hormonophobia. And hormonophobia and the fear of hormones is based on prejudice, suspicion, and perhaps lack of education. Now, we know that TRT and HRT wave comes from the States, of course, for the past 10 years. And it's more archaic in it's more going kind of backwards here in Europe. But as a matter of fact, I have this kind of monopoly in my country, because I know not just they call me for conferences to talk about replacement therapy and the benefits, but also I have the monopoly to walk the talk, because other doctors just go by the book. And if you go just by the book, you're missing half of the truth, which is hard-earned experience.
Yeah.
Apart from this, I have to tell you that I work for balanceMyHormones.co.uk, which is an testosterone replacement therapy clinic in Bristol, in England. So UK is way more advanced than the rest of the Europe, and of course USA is way more advanced than UK. Is start growing this thing, and hopefully men have this kind of solution in order to live a second puberty and to have a chance, because urologists and endocrinologists are, they're not so up and up about this. And there is a major fear. There used to be a major fear actually about prostate cancer related to testosterone and cardiovascular disease. However, both of these myths have been dispelled and debunked, and there is no direct association between testosterone and prostate cancer. And actually, testosterone is cardioprotective under optimization, which means it's about the health. It's not about abuse.
Sure. So you mentioned there that you're working for the clinic over in Bristol. Is the treatment in, let's say, the UK, would it be an expensive procedure to kind of get onboarded with testosterone, or like what kind of pricing are people looking at?
Well, first of all, you have to undergo a lab work.
Sure.
And after then we have the consultation, and the third stage is prescribing and having access to the medications.
Sure. So can somebody, say, based in Ireland, go and see a doctor in Italy or in Greece, or like, do you have to see a physician from within your own country? Do you know those rules?
Yes, I have quite many patients all over Europe,
Okay.
and either they do medical touring, so they want to come for a couple of days to Athens, Greece, and then visit me as well. And the good thing about my country is that you have access to testosterone and proviron without prescription, and they're really cheap drugs. So
Oh, wow.
because in Greece we have this kind of social health system, it's like socially. So it's having access to many drugs and cheap drugs for the people without so strict rules about prescriptions like in the US or UK. But they can also consult me online and actually balance my hormones. This is what we do. It's a clinic working online through Skype, of course.
Yeah.
So you don't have to move all around, but the benefit is that they can work all over Europe and send the drugs and write the prescriptions online, so it's very convenient.
Sure, I got you. So in terms of, like, let's say somebody in their 30s, and if somebody in their 30s wanted to go on TRT, would you recommend that somebody goes on and they take like HCG so they can keep producing, I suppose, natural testosterone as well? Because obviously, if you go on over a long period of time, from what I was made aware, that it can make you infertile. Is that true?
Absolutely, yes. And this is what I asked them in first place. Now, if you have to go into TRT, because it's not just about I want to get into it. It's not a trendy thing. It's you have to, otherwise you're hypogonadic and you're gonna face other side effects and problems. So if you have to start, then the next question is, do you care about fertility? You wanna have a family, or you already have a family? So HCG is administered in order to keep your balls and produce some sperm, so they restore fertility, they preserve fertility. And because we know, when you administer testosterone, then the testicles, the scrotum will shrink, will atrophize. So you take HCG alongside in order to keep your fertility on, but also it's an aesthetic thing to have a scrotum and ejaculation volume.
Okay.
So HCG is along with DHT or DHEA or pregnenolone. There are also some other hormones that, along with TRT, the testosterone, they fix the so-called hormonal replacement therapy, the HRT.
Sure. Okay. And it is TRT, is that for men only, or is there kind of a female version as well?
So women follow the HRT that consists of, I'm sorry.
No problem.
Women follow the so-called HRT, which is main estrogens, progesterone, DHEA, and occasionally a little bit of testosterone. However, DHEA is more safe for women in order to use testosterone because of the hirsutism and the androgenic side effects.
Okay.
Yeah. But it's more complicated, and women have to face a gynecologist actually in order to have some other examinations for breast and for ovaries.
Okay, gotcha. And in terms of like, would women kind of go on to the treatment when they're going through menopause, or when would they go on?
Yes, women have to be already in menopause, so the menstrual cycle has to be off in order to start using HRT, simply because afterwards they're gonna have a menstrual cycle and able to have a sexual life, so they have to be perhaps after mid-40s or in their 50s.
Okay, wow. Okay, so whereas men can benefit from kind of mid-30s, you're saying?
Men, it's about mid-30s, 40s. I started at 41.
Yeah. It was similar. I was listening to Joe Rogan speaking about it, and he was saying that he started the TRT treatment when I think he was 39 or 38. And like he's obviously, he swears by it. He said that it's something that's made a massive benefit to his life in terms of like obviously it's something that 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 you actually prescribe for people. But can you notice massive differences in yourself
Yes,
compared?
especially if you are hypogonadic, then the transition from hypogonadic state to eugonadic is it's remarkable, and it's really impressive.
Yeah.
So you feel like a reborn man, resurrected.
Sure, sure. And I suppose the last question I have for you, George, is just in terms of, okay, I mean, the side effects all sound, it sounds a lot better than not being on it if you're going through kind of the negative side effects initially. But is there any kind of negative side effects from going on TRT?
Okay, now testosterone was made in order in the old times before EPO was synthesized in order to treat anemia. So since androgens treat anemia, then it's reasonable to think that prolonged use or perhaps abuse of testosterone and AAS will lead to erythrocytosis, which is the other side, or is the flip side to the coin. So you fight anemia, but afterwards you start increasing your red blood cells and your hematocrit and your hemoglobin levels. Number one is this. Now, testosterone is also metabolized or reduced to another androgen, which is the so-called dihydrotestosterone or DHT. DHT now is capable of doing two things: either hair thinning, which is the androgenic alopecia or male pattern baldness, or benign prostatic hypertrophy, which is enlargement in some cases of the prostatic gland. However, this is not linked with absolutely with the testicular cancer, because with prostate cancer, because we know hypogonadic men also with low testosterone have incidence of prostate cancer, and also excessive estrogens and obesity may be another part of this. Another thing is, of course, lowering fertility and in scrotum size, which is managed by HEG. And as we speak now, the male pattern baldness is treated with anti-androgens or like 5-A reductase inhibitors like finasteride or dutasteride, or some local applying agents like minoxidil or ketoconazole in the form of shampoo or foam.
Okay.
And also the same goes for prostatic enlargement, perhaps some finasteride or dutasteride. Now, erythrocytosis is managed with phlebotomies and some taking of aspirin or pentoxifylline or some fish oil, hydrating well, and this is the main deviations we have in the consequences from testosterone use. However, sometimes this is personalized, and we shouldn't generalize the side effects.
Okay, I got you. Okay, listen, I suppose because I think about 75% of my listenership is men that are kind of coming in and around the ages that we're speaking with. Say if somebody wanted to reach out to you and somebody wanted to get in touch with you and potentially become a patient, where can they find you, George?
So my website is gtoul.com.
Okay.
They can also find me in the social media, George Touliatos on Facebook, Dr. George Touliatos on Instagram, George Touliatos on Twitter and LinkedIn also. Okay. And they can also get my books on Amazon.
Okay, brilliant. I'll tell you what I'm going to do, George. I'm going to leave the links to your website and your social media account in the description where people are listening so they can see it on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever it is they're listening. Is that fair enough?
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate
it. No problem. And listen, thank you so much for doing the interview. It's very interesting. And I'm sure some people are definitely interested, because I definitely am, and I've seen obviously great benefits from people from taking it. So obviously it's good to kind of debunk a lot of the myths that you kind of hear, because obviously there might be an agenda where people don't want people taking it, like you said, for the pharmaceutical companies to benefit from pushing other drugs,
Yeah, it would be better to consult an open-minded physician instead of self-treating,
Yeah.
And I really appreciate it, and pleasure was mine.
Hey, thank you so much. Okay, thanks so much, George, and chat again, okay? Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, bye-bye.